Hey everyone, as we get closer to finishing the vertical slice of Damon Claw, which is finishing the splash screen and then first cinematic screen, level 1, and then the level boss fight, it's starting to be time to really start focusing on playing the game from beginning to end, from loading screen to what will be the boss fight, and really nitpick and look for every little thing that needs to be polished up and improved. This can be gameplay, it can be simply how quickly the screens fade in and out to transition from one scene to the next. All of those little things we really need to start paying careful attention to, and that's what Corey and Corey, as always, is with me right now. Say hi, Corey.
Hey, how's it going?
So that's what we're going to be doing in this video. We're just going to start the game from the loading screen. Probably going to do this a few times in a row and just look for anything that we notice could really use cleanup and improvements. And eventually we'll be going into actually gameplay for level 1 and then the boss fight later on after the boss is actually implemented, but that'll be in a video for later. Another thing I should point out is we're going to largely skip over the design of the title screen / main menu for now, because that's going to be a whole video unto itself where we decide the visual layout of the splash screen / main menu. So we won't be discussing that, but the things like how quickly does it fade, what buttons you press, what the options are, all that kind of stuff we're going to quickly review and see if we could finalize those kind of decisions and just make sure everything runs really smoothly and is a pleasant user experience, basically. And one other thing, eventually we're going to make another video of the same exact process, but where Corey is the one playing and recording his screen, because I've played the game a lot more during the development stage, but now it'll be extremely handy to have someone who has not played the game a lot to critique and suggest and make improvements on the gameplay and everything involved in that, from the physics to the size of collision boxes and the timing of animations and just the input itself. Without further ado, I'll just... Oh, I'm running the wrong frame already. This is not off to a good start.
Hey, at least it's not the spreader layout.
Well, actually kind of missed that bit of nostalgia, but all right, here we go. So here we have our loading screen, and Corey will be the one taking notes if we see anything. All right, so I can choose right now. Our three options are play, how to play, and about. Eventually, we're going to be adding like a setting screen where you're going to be able to set your sound ratio. So you might want to add that to the list, Corey. Add settings menu option to main menu.
Right.
And so remember, everyone, we're not worried about how it looks right now, just what...
I suppose, I know on touch devices there's always a default way to get out of apps.
Right.
So would we need an option to quit or exit the game here as well for any other type of device? Or?
Yeah, there should be a power button. You'll see that the buttons aren't visible at the moment.
Right.
So that's going to be one of the ways.
Right.
Yeah, like you literally, if you touch the power button or click on it, you'll be able to quit out. But that is a good point. It would be potentially nice for the other versions of the game, including the PC and Mac and Linux version, if you could actually get to it in an option or with one of the buttons at the very least. So go ahead and add that to the list, exit game option.
Okay.
And then the other thing is, let's make sure you can choose these options by clicking. I don't remember if I added that yet. Yeah, so you can click, that's fine. I'm going to restart again quickly and double check. Let's see how quickly this fades in. Oh, it's the sound is muted for it, so we can't synchronize it with the time. But that seems like a reasonable amount of time for our logo. I don't think that'll annoy anyone. And we could we could even add a thing to make it so that you can skip by it faster. It might already be in there. Let me see. No.
That's, I think that's
a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, I don't think it's that bad.
All right. And keyboard.
And I would like to add some animation to that, but we could keep it about the same length, I think.
Right.
Or something. But
yeah. Okay. So you mean to the actual logo screen, right?
Yeah, the Bitbeam. I don't know. I think if it did something to come into the screen.
Right now
we'll see. We can play with that later and see about the timing of it, because
at
the moment it is nice and quick, and you know,
Right,
I
yeah.
don't know if we want to ruin it.
We don't
with a
wanna-
bunch of fancy stuff.
Yeah, not too fancy, but like right now it makes
Right.
that cartridge ka-chunk noise and then that brew kind of noise when the logo fades in, and then it's just right into the main menu screen. So, and then, oh yeah, I wanted to check if you can actually go into it. Well, yep, keyboard input works as well. So cinematics, they fade nice and quick now, so you can get through that quick.
I think the one thing we haven't done in terms of the button controls is like actually touching them, or you know, like that functionality
Oh,
hasn't
right.
been added in.
Yeah, you mean during the actual gameplay. Yeah, good point. Let's see.
I think it's
Yep.
yeah, I think like
Okay.
the mouse doesn't. Yeah. See.
So can you add that to the list? Add touch control, or make touch controls work, or something like that. If you look here in level 1, in the layer called touch overlay, I've added new sprite objects. One for the up button, one for left, right, down, and one for each of the buttons. And then if you look into the event sheet called player input, I just copied or cloned this entire D-pad inputs subgroup here and renamed it to touch inputs. And then I replaced all of the actions that are looking out for buttons being pressed on the actual controller with those particular sprites being in active touch, meaning they're being touched at the moment. So is right being touched? It's the same exact logic as the keyboard events and D-pad events, but with whether or not those particular sprites that I've added are being touched or not being touched. And then the last thing I needed to do was to copy one of these events that already existed. The one for gamepad already existed, and the one for keyboard already existed. So all I did again was to copy the one for gamepad, and I switched it to has any touch begun, and then you'll see I turn on or activate the touch inputs, and I turn off the other groups, which is for the keyboard inputs and the D-pad inputs. And we already had these events which make the buttons animate or look pressed or not pressed depending on the situation. And now touch input works for all screens because all screens of the game already included the player input event sheet. All right. So let's restart again. All right.
I guess we'll also have to put the player back.
Yeah, we're going to do that in a moment. Before that, can you make it so that during the, let's see, play, make it so that during the cinematic, if you keep the button held down for a couple seconds, then you'll skip the whole cinematic sequence quickly.
Okay.
In the cinematic event sheet, all I had to do was create a new global number or global variable called held button 1, and then I added a few events. One, that every so many fractions of a second, if the player is holding B1, that's what this value keeps track of, and that is regardless of it's with an actual controller, keyboard, or touch. So long as they are holding B1, we add to the held button 1 new global variable that we created. And if button 1 is not being held down, then we set that to 0 immediately. And then if it reaches greater or equal to 10 and fade of the fade out sprite is still equal to 0, then we're going to do exactly what we do immediately when the player reaches the end of the cinematic sequence and then presses the button again to leave the entire cinematic screen. So in this way now the player can just hold the button for about a second and then skip right past all of the remaining cinematic scenes right to whatever the next layout is in the game. All right. And that's it for that. So I think it is now time to actually, and I'll probably do this off video since it's very simple, but I'll just move the player back to the beginning of level 1.
Mm-hmm. If you want to,
Yep.
while you're at it, you
Yep.
can, at that big thing that transitions out of the level, you can make that invisible as
Yes,
well. So
good
kind of
point.
see how that looks
Yep.
without a giant
That would have
whatever
been
there.
that would have been one of the things on the list to do, but it's so fast we might as well just do that while we're moving the player. So
Right,
great point. All right, we'll be right back, everyone. All right, we are back. I made this invisible and a little bit shorter because it was sticking too far out before. And then we also at the same time moved the player not only to the beginning but off screen, and we added one event, which is here on start of layout. I made intro or exit to 1. It tells the game engine that the player is off screen on the left and should walk in until a certain point is reached. And then we had to edit this because we discovered a funny bug. This used to say if the player X is greater than equal viewport left plus a certain amount. But the problem was we wanted him to come out a little farther than before. And because it was far enough out for the screen to start scrolling, the player never reached viewport left plus, I think it was 200 we were trying.
Mm-hmm.
Because it scrolls the screen before he reaches that far, so he never reaches it. Or he would
Right.
eventually when you literally reach the end of the level. So he would just, the first time I tried it, after changing that, setting the value properly to 1, when we ran it, the player just kept walking, and we figured out that was why, that we had it set to viewport left plus a number. So we made that a hard number, not based on viewport left, which is just a coordinate in the actual layout. So now that works fine. So we're going to run it and show you what's happening. We might as well start at the loading screen again.
Okay.
All right, so right now there's a ka-chunk sound that comes in. So that's definitely pretty snappy. And then you can use keyboard, mouse, or touch so far to do that. Then we've got this, and I'm going to make it so you can skip all of them by holding the button a bit. That'll be nicer. And then that's how far he walks out, which feels good.
Yeah.
So,
And I think we could also make a note of, like, when he comes in, the HUD not being there, so it's a little more cinematic, and then
yeah, that
I
is.
think that might work.
Yep, that will definitely look nicer, more cinematic, and yeah, it really lets you know you have control now. You can play. So whenever there's going to be, as we already know from the previous video when we added the dialogue system, when the game takes control away from the player, the HUD goes up off of the screen to make room for the dialogue box. So this will just reinforce that input use largely to the same code, and just give it that extra polish. All right, so now that that's done, I think it's time to just let me restart one more time, and we're going to just start playing.
Okay.
And we could just look for things. There are definitely still some bugs that are left over that we have not fixed yet. The most important being there are a few different ways you can get frozen in the air, like if two things happen at once. So we need to figure out. All right, uppercut. Oops.
I'm wondering if,
Yep.
like, since the flying birds
Mm-hmm.
like dive so fast, I'm wondering if it would be better on the initial first, like maybe you just encounter a couple normal birdmen, or do you think it's better to hold off on them? I don't know if they're easier to take out though from a gameplay.
Yeah, that's a good question. We do have, if the player, and ideally we'll have an actual running demo. So if you stay on the splash screen, it'll actually show a little bit of the demo playing.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, we should add this. Let's see if we can get this into the vertical slice, because it'll add a lot of polish. But
Okay.
what I want to do is not only have it demo the game, but somewhere maybe in the bottom left corner here would be nice icon showing what buttons the player is pressing to do the moves. So it's not only a demo to tease you, it shows you how to play the game simultaneously.
Right.
And so that way they'll see how easy it is to dispatch the flying birds when they come down at you with the uppercut move. It really
Right.
does make the birds extremely easy to beat and the birdmen harder to beat. So that will solve that problem to a large degree.
Yep. Yep.
So people that are relying on really fast reflexes to punch or jump punch, it's still not that hard actually. But the other thing is, if they've seen the that's called attract mode for trivia sake in the old arcade machines. That was
Maybe
the
it could
official.
be,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe it's the height of the bird. Like maybe the first bird should be a little lower so you
Right.
can hit them easier without doing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you can always do the uppercut, but I just mean
Right.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
in case the player like first time they don't know
Right.
about it. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Definitely.
they can just get those first couple enemies out of the way pretty easy.
Yeah.
And,
We definitely want a really smooth learning curve.
mm-hmm.
So, all right. Otherwise, that's all good. So I think there was a point where we have like a sort of bug, not exactly a bug, but where the Birdman from behind you came in from really high and swooped down really fast. I'll have to
Right.
replay again to. Oh, that was very enjoyable. I don't know if you
Yeah.
were looking at the screen at that
Yeah, it
moment,
was.
but that was awesome. All right. Oh, wrong button command. There we go. Yeah, you get really powerful. It's pretty nice. Oops, forgot to get out my. Oh, that is a bug. So if you initiate this move, so please write this down. If you initiate that downward attack, like that, what is that called? Like the meteor fireball attack.
Yeah.
If you initiate that when you're about to hit the ground, it'll actually go inside the ground instead of landing properly. Man,
Right.
it's really hard to reproduce when you want. There we go. That was too low. Yep.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to fix that.
Yeah. This one was an easy one, probably even for those not yet evolved by the event. And what we have in the level 1 event sheet, I just looked for the event that had the meteor sprite object. And here where it says on collision with floor collide, I just added this action, which sets that meteor sprite to the y coordinate of the floor collide bounding box top minus 30. And what that is, let me go here. If you recall, all levels have this floor collide, and the bounding box top is this top edge, and then we're subtracting 30 pixels. And that's going to make sure that even if the player is overlapping inside and shoots the fireball into the floor, the explosion is going to teleport back up to the proper place on the ground instead of in the ground. All right, cool. Oops. Nice. Ouch. Yeah, he's unnecessarily high, that one from the back.
Yeah.
So just write down a couple of birds that come from the back are start too high.
Yeah, I think that the highest ones that are near the top should be just a few in those key spots where we want them to be more difficult, you know?
Yeah.
And otherwise they should be a little bit medium height, and then the really
Right. Oops.
easy ones should just be kind of low, and you know. Another thought I had too
Yep.
is, you know, we had timed black belt
Yep.
levels and stuff for the length of these.
Yeah.
But there's like, I get the sense that black belt, since the characters were smaller, it seems like they threw a lot more at you in a level to get to the end.
Right.
Compared to this, even though it's technically the same amount of time.
Right.
But since this is like bigger scale characters, and it seems like there's less
Yeah,
of them overall,
exactly.
it feels a little quicker. You know, it's psychological, but it
Right.
feels faster. You know.
Yeah, because
So I'm
less
wondering
happened. It was
Yeah,
less
I'm
frantic.
wondering if stretching the level out a little longer wouldn't hurt, but
Yeah, yeah,
at
yeah.
the same time, like you are struggling to get there with one life, you know. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like, do you remember how black belt? It's just the enemies keep coming infinitely if you stay still.
Right. Yeah.
So that's one of the big differences. That's why it feels less frantic. So we can definitely either add more enemies, but like you said, it's already.
We also did take out the mini boss fight too. Like I think.
Oh right,
it's not in here at the
that's a
moment,
great
yeah.
point. So we need. I
Yeah,
want to
those
have.
lengthened the black belt levels a lot.
Yeah.
You had
Great point. So yeah, I want to have two. I want to have two mini boss fights. So add that to the list. Bring
Okay.
back sub boss fight and add a second one. And we'll see if we can figure out some quick way to create variety between the two, so they won't be exactly the same. Like it could be a sequence of birds coming in fast from both sides. You know what I mean? Something. I don't know what yet, but that's
Right.
something we can figure out. And it's really not that hard. It wouldn't be that hard for me to, if I weren't thinking about gameplay and stuff like that, I don't think I'd have too much trouble getting to the end of the level.
Right.
The difficulty seems pretty nice.
I would say too, and this is more of a graphical thing, but deciding the official placement of all those like foreground trees and stuff would be another.
Oh yeah,
that's
definitely.
more of a polishing,
Yeah.
sort of final thing once
Yep.
the level's decided. But that would be sort of a final touch of making sure it all looks the way it needs to. So.
Nice. But that's definitely what this is all about. It's not just finding actual bugs. It's making sure we've got that polish there. Like it just becomes barren in the foreground. There's no more trees.
Yeah, it gets to this point, and you're kind of
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm not
Yeah.
seeing that anymore. And we can have those little ruins sprinkled around, and
Yeah.
things like that.
Oh,
So,
that's actually a really good point. Would you mind? You know that nice statue you made there?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if you could like just take it. It looks like it's about 32 pixels wide. Like make a taller, dark version that we could swap out the tree with every once in a while once you get this far into the level and have a statue in the foreground.
Yeah.
All right. I think you can definitely end up being able to go too high. That's another. Could you know when really powerful flaming uppercut goes too high?
Okay.
And then I think same thing with the when you're really powerful, the fireballs spread out a little too much.
Okay. Yeah. They're pretty.
You get a
It's
little
like
too
half
OP.
the screen, so it's
Right.
it's quite a bit. Yeah.
Both of these issues are resolved in the level 1 event sheet because they're both pertaining to the magic power that you get in level 1. And you can see here in this event that checks all of the requirements necessary to trigger the fire-powered uppercut. I've now added a more sophisticated equation to figure out how high up, which is the vector y value, how high up the character should jump during the uppercut. And by adding this min, which is minimal, part of the equation, what it's doing now is it's only picking the lowest number of two possibilities. And that is 175 plus the power level times 15. So that's the original formula that we had before. And then the other option is 260. So it's going to pick the minimum of the two. So if you get such a high power level that this equation is more than 260 total, then it's going to pick 260. And then whatever it picks out of these two with a maximum of basically it'll only allow it to get as high as 260, then we multiply that by -1 because vector y -1 is to go upward, +1 would be to go downward. And then for the movement of the fireballs explosions that go out, we're going to search for explosion and then look for the actual event that creates them when you have a high enough power level. Here it is. If your power level is 2 or greater than 2, you're also going to create these ones on the side. And you could see here, once again, I added for the one that's going leftward, we set the X move me value, which is a special value we set for it that tells it how many pixels per frame to move. And in this case, since it's moving to the left, we want to cap it with a max value. And then we have the same thing, but now we're using minimum for the one that's going to the right. And otherwise, it's the same formula. Now, both the uppercut is capped and how high it can go, and the explosions that come out the side, they can only go so quickly and so far out before they dissipate as well. Alright, here I am about to die again, but if I ignore this Birdman, I should be fine. Alright, yeah, and there's too much unpopulated room at the end of the level. Could you write that down too?
Oh yeah, for enemies, yeah.
Yeah. There's add more enemies to end of level, basically.
All right.
All right, cool.
And I don't think anything needs to change here.
No, I mean this is perfection. There's
Yeah. I wasn't paying much attention when you were playing last time, but
Mhm.
how does the like sort of the amount of those orbs you get and stuff feel as you go through the level? Does it seem right, or
Right.
is it going to change a lot based on more enemies? Or I mean, I feel like there's
Yeah.
probably an area of tweaking we're going to have to do to that to make sure
I agree.
he
yeah.
doesn't get too powerful too fast or things like that, you know.
Right.
But also make sure it's possible to get the full powers before the end of the level.
Right,
if
exactly.
you achieve it. So
Right.
I'll say balancing orb collecting,
Right.
something like that.
You can drop kick with the how is it? It's down and jump, I thought. Why isn't it working now? Huh, I think that might be a bug. Yeah, that's a
Okay.
bug. All right.
Oh,
So-
you're not drop kicking properly?
Yeah, and I think it's because I have the fire power maybe past a certain level.
It gets replaced, I think, by the fireball, right? The meteor.
Well,
I think
no,
that's-
both of those are with the attack button. The drop kick is with the jump button again, I'm pretty sure. So I'll know in a second. So jump. Oh, no, it's not. Weird.
Yeah, I think the drop.
Oh, it
kick
is with attack. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, so we're replacing it with that meteor thing. So
Right. So but one thing we should do is when you do that stomp right now, there's no special landing animation on the stomp.
right,
And you
right.
get stuck immobile for a little bit of time if you miss and you just
Right.
land with the stomp. So special single frame animation for hitting ground from dropkick. Because we need it to be obvious. Right now, it feels like a bug once you've landed. I mean, it's nice that the screen shakes, but you're just standing there, so it doesn't make sense that you can't move. So it's like a little tiny built-in penalty for missing your drop kick. But
Right.
right now, it feels like a bug because it doesn't have that special frame.
How do we feel about? We never really discussed it, I don't think. We've got the sort of regular power-ups in like the bubbles that fly by, which
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that needs to change. I had thought about various ways to change it, but I never decided on anything. But also the heart, I know the original
right, yeah.
intention was that it was just kind of a temporary thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if visually we can come up with something better for that. Maybe,
Right.
maybe we could just note that brainstorm on that, but
Yeah,
we don't
yeah.
have to think of it in the moment. So
Yeah, it certainly wouldn't be a big deal if the vertical slice got promoted or
yeah,
released
they
with
work
it like
as
that.
is, but
Yeah.
you know.
But I
mean,
agree, it's a little bit of a cliche and a little too.
Yeah.
Ideally, we could come up with something different that's a little more kind of high testosterone.
We can
serious.
just make it one of those life rectangles that just
Yeah.
flies by with wings. No.
I think it should be a flying trash turkey. I think.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's at least if you play the game, it'll be an Easter egg. You play the game on Thanksgiving, and whatever they are, it'll be replaced with a flying trash turkey here. But interestingly, I have not been able to reproduce
Do
those.
you feel that those birds are a good, like the flying ones are at good speed, or do you think they're maybe a bit too fast?
To me, they feel really good. But again, this is going to be one of those things
Yeah.
where having you play it is going to make a big difference.
I just know, like, just from watching it,
Yeah.
like the ones that come from the front in front of you, they're just on screen for a split second
Yep.
before you even take them out. Like it's like there's not much breathing
Reaction
room in
time,
terms
yeah.
of seeing them coming or anything.
Right.
So
Right. That's interesting. I wonder why that's happening. Well, what I just saw happening is the cool-off meter, it was filling up slowly and then suddenly filling up like twice as fast. I don't remember. Watch. Oh, no, it's not doing it now, of course. Rewind that video. There, it just did it. I
Okay.
wonder why that's happening. I wonder if did I code it? Does it replenish automatically fast if you collect a power orb or something like that? There, it just did it, and I didn't collect anything. Yeah, check
Okay,
on that.
I'll write that down as a bug. Speed
Yeah.
of magic refresh is sometimes too fast, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I've got to say though, like I definitely look forward to you playing it because I've played it too much. But it's
Right.
it feels very responsive. It actually feels fun. It feels like you can actually fight back pretty well.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, that's the other thing. When we get the sub boss thing, I know there's a scrolling issue we did not fix yet. There's a pop depending. So at end of sub boss fight, fix camera scroll. So what was happening here in gameplay events, at every tick, if these criteria were met, we were setting the position of the camera to match the position of the player. But the problem was we were sort of decoupling that position in order to lock the scrolling for the sub-boss fights. And then once you killed both enemies, the variable locked went from 1 to 0 instantaneously, and this wasn't here before. This check to make sure the camera is not moving. So what was happening is, as soon as lock switched from 0 to 1, the camera would teleport to the position of the player, causing the teleportation in the screen position. So all we needed to do was add this here to check and make sure, let the camera itself finish moving back to the player position, and now you can always set its position to match the player. Yeah, I think having two boss segments and potentially slowing down how frequently you get the orbs just a little bit.
Yeah.
And slowing down those initial birds. I think.
And also with the orbs too, there's the other decision of, are you always going to get both types of orbs, or are certain enemies? Like we could set it up where certain things give you life orbs, certain things give you magic.
Right, exactly. All of that is definitely programmable. Like you could just set it with variables. I mean, I think that's enough information for this video. Mark this down. This looks like a bug. I just saw something. It looked like when I was doing the smash. Yeah, wow, that went right through the bird too. Every once in a while it looks like the smash move, the air bash.
It's not connecting.
It's not connecting, and what's really weird is both the bird flew right through it and the heart flew through me entirely when I was doing the air bash.
Oh, okay.
So that's definitely weird.
Connecting, and I'll do them as separate. Not collecting power-ups / heart
when in air bash.
When using air bash. Okay.
Both of these issues are resolved in the gameplay events event sheet. The first problem with air bash not colliding with the flying enemy sometimes was because originally we had a check also to make sure that the player's power level was 0, but once we added the cool-off meter, it was actually possible to do the regular air bash even if the player already earned the gauntlet, because if their cool-off meter was low enough, then it would do the regular air bash instead of the fire-based air bash. So we just removed that check for whether or not power level was 0, because that was no longer consistent with the logic of the game. And now that always works fine. And then the other issue, if we search for pickup, originally, for some reason, I was not checking for the collision of the pickup items with the player box, which is what it should have been and which is what it is now. But I was checking for the box that I had set up in most animations in the spriter object. But in the case of the air bash animation, that animation does not have that particular collision box in the spriter object. So this makes it work in all cases, and that resolved that issue as well. Oh. It looks like you can, right now you can cancel out of air bash. This is a bug. You can cancel out of air bash with a regular air punch.
Alright. For
this bug, it was simply a matter of adding hero is current animation air bash and then negating that. In this event, that triggers the actual punch.
Okay.
So we're simply making sure that if air bash is playing, it can't get overridden by the regular punch. Good.
Nice. Yeah, everything's looking pretty solid. I can't think of any other than those foreground object placement stuff. I can't. We had talked about maybe some visual tweaks to this first level, but we can go over those later. Once we're in a sort of final polish stage. But right now, it's looking pretty solid, I think. So.
Yep. Awesome. All right. Yeah, I think.
Liking it.
Yeah, I have a feeling for this level, what we'll do is have the first sub-boss fight will be the guys with boomerangs, and then the second one could be. Yeah, this would be really cool. Can you note? So, could you note this? First boss fight, 2 guys with boomerangs, and then for the second boss fight, we could have it so that a wave of 2 of them come in, and then when you beat them, 2 more come in with the shield and the boomerang. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you have to beat those first 2 just like before, and you're like, oh, it's this again. And then you kill them, and then it still hasn't unlocked the scrolling, and now there's 2 more with the shield.
So it doubles up on them, but also adds the extra thing, and that way we're not doing some crazy stuff like giving them new weapons.
Right.
I like that.
And then we can always, after the vertical slice, we can always decide to add even more things, but I think it really is feeling good, and it doesn't get repetitive or boring as it stands, which is a great sign.
I like too the timing of the regular Birdmen when they do their sword slash seems just right.
Yeah, to get in there. Yep.
Right. Yeah, you have that little window of just taking them out. It's perfect. The very black belt. That's exactly how it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. All right.
Nice. All right. Yeah, I think that.
I guess one final thing.
Yeah.
And maybe this will come into when I do my gameplay. Any potential damage tweaking or anything like that we might need to do once we've both played and we see like, is this too hard? Is it too hard for a first level? Too easy for first level?
Right.
That's something we haven't thought about much. It seems decent enough. You seem to be making it okay, but
yeah.
I don't know how it's going to be when I play. So
exactly.
I'll write it down as a potential thing.
Right. Just once you get used to getting all the moves out without thinking about it, and then remember that uppercut for the first level. That makes it go from really hard to quite easy at the moment. And like you said, we'll just slow down the birds that come toward you. And that will help that learning curve for people who haven't watched the attract mode demo to see how effective the uppercut is.
Right.
But still, they should end up getting pretty fast. I think the difficulty of the level is about right for normal mode, not casual mode, and not hardcore mode.
Right.
As it stands, once we just ramp it up a little bit, at the beginning, make it easier so that you learn your timing and learn to get out your moves and all that.
Right.
There to hit you. Yeah, that looked like that should have hit.
It's dicey when they're on both sides of you.
Yeah, but at the same time, I swear my uppercut was going through that guy.
Yeah. Well, I'll write that down too as a potential bug.
Yeah, check collision boxes for all uppercut power levels.
All right.
This was just a case of the kind of sloppy coding that you would expect from pre-event life forms.
Exterminate.
There were 2 problems going on. There are several different types of birdmen that all have their specific collision boxes to detect whether or not they're being attacked. And because I had copied and pasted to create these events, when it went to the other birdmen, we were still checking for the collision boxes of the basic birdmen, even though it was supposed to be affecting the birdman second variant or sub-boss variant.
Right.
So I just needed to fix that and make sure it was checking for the proper collision boxes. And then the other issue was I had not made a specific event for each of the different uppercut fire animations. So you can see here now we have uppercut fire 1, 2, and 3 accounted for. So now the uppercuts always have proper effect on the enemies. All right, but I think that's it for this list. So hopefully that was interesting for everybody. Oh, I forgot to mention before we started, and you may not have noticed, but since the past video, Corey has tweaked the tile set to make those back trees here, like mid-layer trees, less detailed with less of the highlight and rimlet, so that it pushes them back further and makes the screen a little less distracting from the character. And I think it looks...
Right, yeah. He doesn't get as lost.
Yeah.
It was a bit busy before with that strong yellow, so...
Yeah, looks even better than before, and there was the same tweak for the boss fight arena, so that was recently done too. We're going to have to work on programming the boss fight privately, so you're not going to see videos of us doing the boss fight until the vertical slice is done, because we want the entire boss and boss fight sequence to be revealed when we are ready to reveal and push the sort of promote the vertical slice of the game. So you're going to see us working on videos like this where we're polishing and perfecting the gameplay of the level, tweaking graphics, finishing the what would be called the front end, like the main menu screen, splash screen, logo, all that stuff. But you won't get to see the boss until it's actually polished up and working. So anyway, stay tuned for that. So yeah, that's about it for this video. We've got a nice big list of things to improve and little features to add, and stay tuned for next time. Thanks for watching.
If you enjoy our content and want to keep up to date on our games, please leave a like and subscribe. Also, if you want to support our projects, consider becoming a patron. The link's in the description, and we'll see you soon.
Ha 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 ha.